Here we go with another fountain pen shootout. Alright. I thought that it would be interesting to have a look at 3 Montblanc Meisterstück pens. Why? Because you may be confused between what's out there, what can you buy, and also what are the differences. Of course, there's the Montblanc 144, but I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to talk about these 3. All right, this is a Montblanc Meisterstück 146, also known as the Le Grand. This is the Montblanc Meisterstück 149, and this is the Montblanc Masters for Meisterstück Firenze. What's the difference? Well, clearly size, alright? This one has rose gold trims, but you can also get it in yellow gold, and you can also get it in platinum trims, like on this 149. And I think most people are wondering about the differences between these 2 pens, which is why I've done a separate shootout between those 2 a while ago. Clearly, the 146 is just a bit smaller. It's a bit narrower. Lengthwise, there's not that much of a difference, but it's the girth. And if you look at the nibs, then you definitely see that there is a difference. The 149 has a bigger nib and has a much thicker section. There's a lot more girth. Both of these pens are piston fillers. Now, if you are in the market for something really special, because these in itself are already fairly expensive, if you're in the market for something really, really fancy, you can always look at one of those Masters for Meisterstück pens. A lot more expensive. I think currently these go for something like 720 euros or something. They're pretty expensive. This is 3,000 euros, give or take a few euros. But this is alligator leather and clearly a bit more fancy, sort of a special edition. Actually, what's interesting is that although this looks a lot like a 149 in size, it is in fact a Le Grand sized pen. You can tell by the nib, and you can also tell a little bit by the girth of the section. So if we were to compare that to this, you see that in fact the Masters for Meisterstück is a lot closer in size. Nib-wise, I think it's even the same nib, except of course this is rose gold, and that is some type of rhodium trim or something. And it's thus much closer to the 146 than to the 149. But because it is a different material, it's metal versus precious resin, and because they cover it in that leather, it gets a slightly different size, it gets a bit more girth. So it's very interesting. Now, what I thought I would do is, having talked about this, I mean, of course, you have to make a decision on what is for you. Well, this could be for you if you really want to spend a lot of money on a fountain pen. And I think between these 2, it's really a matter of preference for quite a lot of people. And of course, I speak to a lot of people, whether it's digitally or in real life, who use pens. A lot of people seem to find this pen too much. It's too girthy and too big for them. It doesn't really bother me so much, but I would really try that out in real life in some Montblanc boutique or whatever before you purchase that. I think the 146 is a very nice size. It's a more normal pen size. It's comfortable, and for many people this is pretty perfect. Of course, it's also a bit cheaper. All of these pens are piston fillers, so in that regard it's nice. The only thing is that these don't have an ink window, so you can't really tell how much ink is left, which you can with this, except right now there's a pretty dark ink in there, so you can't really see. But with the 149 that's empty, you can see that's where you can see the ink level. So there you have it, 3 pens. Let's ink these up and then use them side by side, and I'll give you my experience. Okay, then let's have a look at these 3 pens. Now, just to make sure, these 3 pens have radically different nibs, but I simply don't have the same nibs on all 3 of these pens, so you have to bear with me. It's about the writing experience. The 146, I'm not going to write down Meisterstück, I'm just going to write down 146, in this case with an oblique double broad nib. The ink is dandy turquoise. Very nice, very smooth, and a very rich flow. Oops. Very nice, and as I said, very wet. So very pleasant writer, I find. Then we have the Montblanc Meisterstück 149. Here with an oblique triple broad, and this is that new Lamy Pacific / Lamy Turquoise. I find the writing experience of this nib to be just a little bit less smooth than the 146, but still a very nice nib. And what you really notice here in comparison to the 146 is the girth. It's a much bigger pen. Still a very nice wet writer. Now the big difference with this Masters for Meisterstück series is that there is much more metal on these pens. This is all precious resin, this is all metal. So even in comparison to the 149, the Masters is a lot heavier. And this has a simple, humble, medium nib. I'm just going to call this Masters. Corn Poppy Red. Was a bit of a hard start. I've often noticed that with red inks. I don't know why. Or if it's something to do with saturation or something, but the writing experience here too is very smooth. And just a very well-tuned nib. And even on a medium, it's definitely very wet. It's Rhodia paper. So there you have it. 3 very different writing experiences. Because this is so heavy, this could be more tiring for longer writing sessions. Definitely need to like that. I think for everyday use, the 146 is a very, very nice pen model. The 149 is interesting, but much thicker. So I hope that comparison was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.